So, good morning to everybody also from my side. Let's say I was being asked to make a presentation in somehow linking this introduction that has been made about data spaces, about the Open Data Hub, and what we are doing in the field of mobility. And when I was preparing my presentation, I said, but what kind of messages I would like to give? And I hope that you can then remember to this presentation by considering these key messages I would like to share with you. First of all, why are we doing this? So having the problems in mind, the challenges that we have to face in this domain is fundamental. Second point, how can we help to address these challenges? How can smart mobility solutions can help to address these challenges? And this is also important that we know the basics on how we can implement this. Third point, why are we doing mobility data spaces? Why we have started with this initiative more than 10 years ago, so not yesterday. Fourth point, what do we have as Open Data Hub? We have seen a lot of data spaces. I hope you, also Julia, can see what we have done in this domain since a lot of years. And fifth point, what kind of use cases have we already implemented? So we are not starting now. We have already done a lot of things, real implementation that have brought real impact on our territory. So I hope that you will have, let's say, something to remember for on each point. So the reason why. First point, we have a dramatic situation in the field of climate changes. And we know mobility is, let's say, the biggest problem at all. So this is a slide from a study done by EURAC. So it's a very recent study, and you can see here, transportation is the main problem that we have to address. So more than 50% of the CO2 emissions are caused by the transportation, and the target is, before 2030, we have to nearly halve the emissions. So it's very, very challenging. So we have to dramatically change the way we think about transportation and mobility. And the second point, okay, we can maybe address this with a lot of electrification of transportation. Okay, this could be a solution. But we have a second point. How can we ensure that the transportation system is efficient? So thinking about congestion, thinking about safety, all these kind of issues. And if we can see the study that was done by STAR with collaboration with ASTA, this is the picture of the mobility situation in South Tyrol, how people move in South Tyrol, you will see private car is still the main transportation mean. And this is not sustainable in broader sense. Okay, so now the point. How can smart mobility solutions can help? Of course, you can think we can tackle these challenges in a lot of ways, but we are thinking here, what can digitalization do? And if we say, okay, I'm a road operator, like for example, the A22 highway, and I cannot manage demand. So I have the traffic and I have to manage it. What can I do? And if you can see this picture, which was kindly provided by Chisma, so this is a picture that shows how the emissions produced by vehicles vary depending on the speed. And if you can see here, the amount of emissions dramatically increase when the cars are in a traffic jams, so when they have a very low speed. And we have also issues when they drive too fast. So the idea, ideally, we should have a fluent traffic without congestions, without traffic jams, of course, without accidents, because they are also caused. And ideally, they should drive all at an ideal speed where the emissions are lowered at the minimum. This could be something. And the other thing, which is much more ambitious in my opinion, is that through digitalization, we can drive this change, which is, in my opinion, the key to all the problems, to make this shift from the concept of private car as a service, in the sense we always use our car to go from A to B, to this new concept, so it's nearly 10 years that we talk about mobility as a service. Mobility as a service, which is this paradigm to say, I have this palette of all these services. I have taken this picture which presents all the different kinds of services that today can be implemented. And the idea is that I have let's say, an abonnement, and I can pay, for example, a couple of hundreds every month, and I have unlimited access to all these services without boundary. And now the question, the point is, why a mobility data space? Because you can implement your solutions in your own ecosystem and try to give a short contribution to all these challenges. For example, if you are traffic management, you can improve the way you manage traffic. If you are a public transportation operator, you can try to improve the way people use public transportation. And of course, you can work together, and if you want to work together, you can make bilateral data exchange. But if you want then to be linked to each other, you have to implement a lot of interfaces. And this is not scalable, because for a small operator, for example, if they want to be visible, and if there is somebody that wants to use your interface, you have to implement an amount of interfaces that, in our opinion, is unsustainable. It's much more better to do all this interface work once, and then give all the actors the possibility to access the data through these data spaces. And the value is everybody can give data, and everybody can consume data. And this data could be also not be the same. For example, I can share my raw data, and in return, I can get elaborated data, maybe elaborated by others, by algorithms. I can, for example, have enriched data, so data that are combined with other data sources. And this is the value. So the mobility data space is an enabling platform, which means that all this kind of implementation can be now implemented much more faster, because it's also a time issue. So these kind of solutions should be implemented fast, to be fast in giving a response to the challenges I've presented before. So that's the point. What have been done with our Open Data Hub? So I've taken here this title. The mobility data space of the Open Data Hub was not built in a day, like a famous song with Rome was not built in one day, because this has been a long process. Now I've opened, this was, let's say, a screenshot of our analytics yesterday, and it's also something nice to see that we have really a lot of data. I think that most of the mobility and traffic system in our region, and now we are scaling up also outside South Tyrol, are linked to the Open Data Hub since years. So this means that we have also time series, long time series that can be used also by AI tools to implement new things. And this is the history. So I've tried in one slide to show you how the mobility data space was implemented. And what is really nice is that we have put the real use cases before. So we have not done the mobility data space just to integrate data without any real objective. What we have said, let's try to implement solutions that can be used then in real life. And there were, at the end, 3 innovation, let's say, stages. So the first one, when we started also to create the data spaces, making the first prototype. The second wave of innovation was the one that we started, in particular with A22, with STAR, in which certain solutions were implemented in much more, let's say, on a much more broader scale. So, for example, on the A20 highway, or, for example, the overall public transport infrastructure. And this has helped to bring the Open Data Hub, the mobility data space of the Open Data Hub, to a maturity level that now we are ready for the third innovation wave. And the third innovation wave, first of all, another thing. What also Patrick said is important to know. It's not about really just to open the data. It's to create an ecosystem in which parties can share data with trusted parties. I make an example here because these are 2 speakers that will speak. Thanks to the Open Data Hub, a startup, a company here in Neutachbach had the possibility to use data that at the moment are not open, so which are the data of A22, and together they have started to cooperate and to implement so research development activities where you will hear about. And we call them data on request. So we don't call them closed data. We call them data that is available for trusted parties to start research and development activities. And as Patrick said, this is a process because it's important that first you have the business case, you have the data, and then you can start to cooperate. And then making all the data available is then something that is a consequence, not the prerequisite. And let's now a glance to the use cases. This will be also presented by by other speakers. This was one of the main use cases that we have implemented the last year is exactly the usage of the Open Data Hub to help the 822 highway to implement dynamic measures for reducing variable speed limits, so to changing variable speed limits dynamically, so not having fixed, but based on the traffic and environmental conditions, and having a system which is optimal in the sense that these limits are activated just when it's needed and not always. Another use case is in relation to mobility as a service is the demonstration of having the possibility to create this so-called intermodal routing. Because prerequisite for MaaS is that you can give the user an instrument that you can say, I want to go from A to B, and together with all the mobility services that I have, I can have, let's say, a suggestion of trip that combines, in particular, the public transportation, which is the backbone, with first, last mile services that can help you to make your trip to your destination. For example, in the example here from the industrial zone, with your bike, you go to the train station here at Bolzano South, and then you drive to Merano. And now the third innovation wave I was speaking before. When do we want to go? Now, I think that we have, let's say, implemented we have reached a maturity level of the mobility data space of the Open Data Hub so that we can really say we are ready to implement MaaS, but really with ambition of this MaaS level 4. So for who is not, let's say, who is not aware about the MaaS concept, you have to note that in the literature we have 4 different MaaS levels. The fourth one is really the integration between the user needs, so which is somehow what Vincent has presented, also the perspective of the end users to go from A to B with these societal goals, which means we have to reduce the emissions, we have to use the infrastructure as efficient as possible. And we can do this, and the link, let's say, the point here is now that we have just to connect the dots. Because we have already all the traffic domain systems are connected to Open Data Hub, all the mobility systems, so all the operators that provide services like, for example, parking, e-mobility, public transportation is also connected, and we have just to connect all these systems together because it's just really about to put everything together and understand what having in real time really this situation, as you can see here in this picture. So for example, you are in a car and you have all the palette of the solutions that you can have. On the other side, there is something at the Mobility Management Center that has the direct connection with all the vehicles, all the people that with their smartphones are moving. So we collect also the information for all these actors. And we can dynamically say to all the users, please use this kind of intermodal trips to go from A to B. And at the end, we have a balanced system that reduces the amount of emissions, reduce, let's say, the queues and the traffic jams, and so on. We have everything now, in my opinion, and now it's just time to implement these kind of things and to continue, increase also the data in the mobility data spaces, in particular also this topic AI as a service, because thanks to the data that we have, I think this is something that we need to further implement. Thanks a lot.